3, 2, 1, we're live.
Hi everyone, and welcome back. We are here with the amazing Adam Bien, who I don't think needs any introduction left because everyone knows him. You know the drill now. If you have any question, please ask them on YouTube channel or jump in the Slack channel and ask them there. I will pass them to Adam. And if there is anything that we are not able to answer on the session, probably Adam can jump in and join the discussion later, or you can keep in touch with Adam through Twitter, I guess. So without further delay, Adam, if you can please introduce yourself as if anyone needs it or start the session. You are very welcome. Yeah. Thank you very much for being with us at JNation, and see you in a moment.
Yeah. So yesterday I was a little bit sweating because I couldn't find myself on the agenda. And today morning I appeared. So I immediately announced the session. So Mr. Santos told me that we already met at the DevOps Belgium, and now we are on JNation. And I was invited several times by Red Cortez or Rat Cortez, and now I'm here. So this is the magic of virtual meetings or Zoom. So what I was told by Mr. Santos is that you are not asking questions. So I would ask you, what's wrong with you? So keep the time, ask questions when as you like. For me, it's a lot better to asking questions than writing something in the IDE. So the title of today's show is, or the idea is actually that you can be very productive without any frameworks. That's the gist of the session. So I'm still Java developer, and currently I'm working with Microprofile Jakarta and Microprofile Quarkus, a little bit Helidon, Payara in various projects. So I didn't, the last web component project was 1.5 months ago. So I'm a little bit out of practice, but yeah, it should work still. So now, and I really enjoy Java and JavaScript. I forgot, actually, of course, it's a JavaScript session, but I also started at the same time with Java and JavaScript, because back then you had to know JavaScript a little bit to create, websites. Not even on mouse over worked without JavaScript. And I started with JavaScript as the origin name was LiveScript. So, okay, there are some video courses. There's AirHacks News and podcast. So the podcast is a little bit interesting because if you would like to know, everything about Roberto Cortez. So I interviewed him on the podcasts in the episode 22. So actually a long time ago, it was almost 3 years ago, from Tommy user to committer, and now keynote speaker. So listen to the episode, then you will know everything about Roberto, right? So now this was the podcast. And regarding questions, this is the interesting, Uri, what I'm doing once a month. I stream on YouTube or I answer all the questions which gathered the entire month on AirHacks TV, and you can put your question down and I will answer it once a month. Please don't send me any technical questions via email, but if you like, you can also use Twitter, no problem. Okay, now some, there are upcoming workshops, but they're almost full. There is Java on AWS is in July 8th. They are virtual. If you like, you can join. Okay, there is the marketing slides. Now the most important slide, why are we talking about web components? And I'm actually targeting this session on Java developers. Because like me, if I saw web components, this was for me something which I can understand. It looks almost like Java. So, and what I really like, the APIs are stable. They don't change in contrary to the other, frameworks. So you can absolutely use that. And there is no magic, no surprises. You read the spec and it works. So this is what I like. There is this MDN documentation, and this MDN stands for Mozilla Developer Network. And it looks very like JavaDoc. So if we go to, where's my browser here? And we search, let's say, MDN HTML element, which we will use in a second. Yeah, I agree. HTML element. And you can see there is HTML element, inherits from element node. So it looks for me as almost Java code. So this is also why I like the plain stuff. And you don't need anything. So in fact, in the larger projects or in all projects so far, we don't even have We don't even have npm installed on local machines. You can do whatever, like just, how we started 20 years ago, so just plain web. And so I will show you what I mean by that and ask questions. And they are working out of the box, learn once, never migrate. This is why I survive, I would say more than 25 years of Java. Why I survived that? Because I only learned the diff, not everything which comes new, just the small difference year per year. And I try not to forget the old stuff. Okay, and no accidental migrations required. It's not like, there is a patch needed because the web component, something happened internally. If there's a patch needed, the browser is going to be patched, but there are no accidental updates required, which is sadly required sometimes with JavaScript frameworks. So for me, web components plus web standards, and people say, okay, web standard, what is it? Whatever you will find on Can I Use. Can I Use is amazing site. Can I Use? If you search, for instance, for custom elements, you will find that they are supported everywhere. Window custom elements except Internet Explorer 11. So they are so-called polyfills. And Opera Mini, nothing runs Opera Mini because it runs on the server. So, but as you can see, and I use the page all the time because whatever is available here everywhere, I don't need any patches or so-called polyfills. Okay, so this was, and what I'm using today is Visual Studio Code, Browser Sync, Chrome, Firefox, and or Safari, it doesn't matter. Firefox and Chrome are the best for web development from tooling, and Redux DevTools is optional, but I will probably use it today, depends on your questions. Okay, so now productivity. We have 50 minutes time. I will attempt today to explain you unidirectional data flow, which basically means model view controller. What we did for 25 years was renamed to unidirectional data flow now in the JavaScript world, but how it works is, we have a web component here. This is a custom element. And this custom element is just presentation layer view. What we did, 10 years ago with Swing or JavaFX. So let's imagine a text field. If you do something with the text field, the state of the text field changes. The text is sent to a control, which is basically a Java file, JavaScript file with functions. And the function we could name save for later or something like that. And then the function can call backend or calls backend. And if there's something, there is a state change required. Let's say we retrieve data from the backend, then this function will change the state in the singleton called Redux, but it's actually a singleton. And Redux will update will notify all the custom elements, and they will re-render themselves. So this is unidirectional data flow, known for 25 years in Java community as MVC, Model View Controller. Any questions? Santosh, sorry, I forgot your first name. I only remember your last name. Mr. Santosh, what's your first name? Question from speaker to moderator.
Actually, it's Samuel, not Mr., just Samuel.
Yeah, Samuel, but I couldn't read, your first name. So I'm telling Mr. Santosh, so Samuel is way better. So, okay, this was the last slide. And now I would also do something like this. So what I will use today is plain web standard template, PWS, nice name. And this is nothing. There are just 3 files, but I got the question always, how you created the thing, and I will show you with that. And so let's do this. And if I fire up, let's see, I'm in the right folder, set up web standard project, and let's call it basics. So let's do this. And I would like to show you how it works. So what happened right now, this GitHub template I showed you right now was cloned. So you can repeat it at home if you like. And what I need this is my Chrome, but it could be anything. And this is my visual. Oh, I can actually go either way because my head disappeared before the show. So let's do this. So exactly, usually it looks like that. And so today it is different. So we have more room. So Hello Plain Web Standards project. So what it is index.html. So it looks like that. and what we load is a JavaScript file and a CSS file. The JavaScript file is almost empty. The CSS is almost empty. So, and today I would like just for you to write a very simplistic web component called, of course, JNation extends HTML element. And this HTML element is this what we saw before. And this HTML element is going to be registered. And this is custom elements. This is the define. This is the web component API, which is required, which we saw in the can I use. And now I would like to use JNation and then JNation as class name. So, and now we connected callback, which is part of the standard. And for Java developers, easy to get is like post construct. It's exactly the same API. I only have to find the right brackets. Now we are talking. So this inner HTML, why I know that? Because of MDN. This is like the attribute of inside this HTML element. So we inherited that. Backticks are like text blocks in Java, but a little bit more powerful, because what I can do is I can say greetings and tell you hello JNation 2021. And greetings to Roberto Cordas, of course. So, and then you will have to ask at least one question. So this is, otherwise I won't stop talking. This is what we can do, a little bit pressure. So greetings, H2. So, and this is impossible in Java, or not easily possible. You will have to use now the %s, and this is a little bit more supported in JavaScript. So now the component, I think is ready to go. Let's see. I go to index.html. And what I can do is I can now use a tag like this, and you see JNation. So we implemented together the very first web component, which is impressive for a conference, but absolutely unusable in real world. Why? Because there are some, what can happen is, long story short, we could actually, if this is more complex, you will really watch what you are injecting here, because you could have like HTML injection. You could inject a JavaScript script to a HTML, and this is a little bit problematic. So, any questions in the chat, Samuel? No questions?
None so far.
Very knowledgeable audience, or the chat is not working. This could be the explanation. So, now, I killed everything, and this is the browser sync, and this is actually explained on the repository. So the magic is this. What happens here, the browser sync watches the source folder, starts Google Chrome, and this is needed for later, the single, and I don't like to see notifications. So what the single does is, if you have routing, and the front end requests a page, if the page is not available, it returns index.html. This is what single does. Okay, so now let's do the next step. So because in all my projects, they are never that simple, and I got no recurring question, but what if you need routing? What if you need, more evolved state management? And what if you need, DOM diffing? And then I created another template, which is more serious. And this is called BCE, stands for Boundary Control Entity, from Ivor Jacobson. Why I use the boundary control entity? Because the term is described several times in several books. I don't have to justify myself why I'm using the names. Without BCE, I always had to invent my own names, and this went terribly wrong. Okay, so we have that. So let's use it. The same story, you only have to clone that, and then it will work. So, my clone works a little bit differently. So set up web BCE. This is exactly the project. It will clone that or copy it locally. I don't have to clone from the internet. And now call it JNation. So, and the same thing happens. The bookmarks or the bookmarks app opens, is a little bit more serious. It comes with lit.html. Forgot actually to open that. Lit.html comes with Redux, and this is basically it. So lit.html is like a standard extension of JavaScript templating capabilities. If you search for ES tagged literal, I think it's called, or template, there are two names, literal MDN, you should find this tag templates. And what you can see here, you can define a function called myTag. And then you can use the same name here. And what this function does, it just expands the variables. Okay, so yeah, homework, look at that. Long story short, what I can do now, or what I will do, is this lit.html is such a function with the name HTML, so you can just use it. Okay, so what I did here already, I created a very simple application, and you can go to add bookmark, and I say JLabel JNation, best conference ever. Best conference ever. But no questions. This is the problem. So almost best conference ever. And if I go to list, you see best conference ever, but no questions. So this is the only downside of that. I can delete that. And this is a small app. What it also comes with, and to demonstrate you that, is it comes with state management. So if I just open that and just not open like that, rather than to right, and make it a little bit larger, state. So if I type something, you see that it actually already changes the state. So, and this is the entire state of the application is in JSON. This is the singleton. And if I just do something, you see that it changes here. It is visible. So watch that. Okay. And because this is Redux, this is the singleton, the tooling, what it also can do, it can actually, wait a sec, the state, where is it? Just cannot find that. There is, this is what I wanted to show you. So as you can see, I can travel back and forth. So like back and forth, so I can reinitiate all the actions. Why is this working? This is working because the entire state is in the singleton. Okay, this is, so we have one class called Redux. Exactly, this is exactly one class, this is the singleton, and the other class is lit.html, JavaScript class. So there's two, how to call it, utilities, which I use. I wouldn't call it a framework. So, okay, so now code review. What happens? What happened behind the scenes? And I will just make it a little bit larger. And so it's very similar to before. So we have an index.html with two links, add and slash. And what we load is app.js and init. Init is just a patch for Redux. It requires a property, so I will have to set the property. So this is no magic. It needs, because it's old, still is Node environment. So this is no more needed in more modern app. And the app is this what you saw. So what is the app? As you can see, what I'm doing here, I'm instantiating Vaadin router, which is a web component. So if you search for Vaadin router web component, it is a great little web component, one class, which helps you with routing. In other projects, we implement routers by ourselves, but you can absolutely pick one. I just picked the Vaadin router. And there are two routes. You see the path slash and add. So if someone clicks on slash, the component blist is going to be called. On add db bookmarks, both components are imported here. Now, the bookmarks or all components. So this is a template for more complex projects. And the idea here is that every concept you can see is or manifests itself as a folder with the same name. So I have bookmarks. And if I would like to create speakers, let's do this, or not speakers, moderators, of course. So let's say here BCE, moderators. So I would get here a moderators. This is just, the BCE is just stupid. What it does is, I don't like to type a lot. It just creates, a folder with boundary control entity. So I can save 3 clicks. So there is a boundary control entity. And now my idea would be that I push here moderators, create moderators. It is always the same, moderators. So I don't have to think about this. It's always the same convention. And I can say class moderators extends. Now, no more HTML element rather than BE element. And this BE element is my own element. And I will show you this in a second. So this is where the magic happens. And by the way, I'm using plain JavaScript, no TypeScript, and this is how it behaves. And now do the import statement, and the module is going to be a BE element, exactly, and then BE element, B element, not BE. B element is the name. So, okay, looks good. Custom elements define, and this is going to be J for JNation moderators, and all components have to have a dash, and then moderators. So now the connected callback is no more needed. I create a view here, and then say return, and then HTML. So this is the and it imports automatically this HTML from lit HTML, and then add here something. Hello JNation. So this is the simplest possible component. We can make it a little bit more complex later, but let's start with that. So now I would like to integrate this, how to do this. So what I would like to do is, I would like to say you are the list here in my HTML, and this is the list, and the just a slash is the moderators. So, and then of course I will have to configure the router. Samuel, still no questions. This is impossible.
Still no questions. It seems like impossible, right?
Are there any viewers? Not that we are alone here. This could be also an explanation, you know.
And Slack is still working, so you know.
Okay, cool. So and now of course I don't have even to think, because this is going to be moderators, and then of course I can use control space moderators. I don't have to type that. So okay, by the way, just back to you see it is working, so just go in that.
Can I ask you a question actually?
Yeah. And what you see is working beautifully, right? So moderators, this is moderators. Samuel,
so yes, you can you go a bit deep on the reasoning why you decided to build those templates instead of using a traditional framework?
Very good. The best question ever. The reason is the entire framework here is this. This is what I wrote. This is the BE element. This is the entire framework. Everything else is just convention. And I was asked about conventions, how I structure the apps. And this is just an example. And the entire framework with lots of logging are 50 lines of code. So what it means is my advice would be not, to download the framework, rather than just pick the BE element, watch on this, and maintain it by yourself. Now, then you are not dependent on anyone. You can maintain the thing, in-house, and it will never break, because we're only using web standards. And the entire history, Samuel, was like, I think it was actually at my, last appearance on Devox, or it was once before. So it was like probably 5 years ago. And in this year, I got a contract to help my clients, and they used Angular app, and they use Angular 1.4, and because 1.4, and they couldn't upgrade to 2 because they couldn't upgrade to 1.5. Another team already used Angular 2 plus something, but it was not compatible with 1.4. And I forgot, but they did something with namespacing in Angular 1.4 in order to be compatible with Angular 2. The problem is another team wanted to contribute component which was higher than Angular 2, was no more possible, so they decided to use React. So we had already 3 frameworks, and I look at the application, and it was actually simple. So it were a view forms, so there is nothing special. And then I asked, why you need all the frameworks? I mean, you can just use, back then, web components were a little bit more problematic. You need polyfills and all the stuff. And they told me, yeah, because without a framework, you cannot develop a website. Okay, and then we did a proof of concept. What happened then? Three to six, I think, internal people created the entire application without any frameworks, and it runs until now. And there were no migration needed. This was the very first story. And now continuing now last year, if you, for instance, using Angular, you are forced twice a year to update the application because of the semantic versioning. And this is why companies, if they don't have to, don't use frameworks anymore. So I got lots of contract, helped companies move away from frameworks. React is reasonable, more reasonable. But one project I remember, client called internally Angulas. And this was the project to move away from Angular, for instance. I don't know why. This is the reason, right? So, and my idea was always, if pick what's there, and if it's not enough, then look at a framework. This was, for 20 years. This is what I do all the time.
But you still use external libraries like the Vaadin router. And I'm sure you must be using others. So if they break compatibility, you still need to come up to your application and update.
This is different. I'm not running inside a framework. Web components are the framework. And it's my decision what I pick. I don't have to use Vaadin router. I only use Vaadin router because
I use it as an example only.
As an example, because people ask me, what to do for routing and how to solve that. So I just picked as an example, but there are single SPAs. There's lots of routers you can pick. It doesn't matter. Then, but very good question. What means I don't implement everything from scratch. The contrary is true. If you don't have a framework, you are compatible with everything. This is the cool story. So for instance, SAP UI 5. If you take a look at that, web components. This is just a set of great web components, date pickers and so forth. So open source. So date picker is a must almost. Color picker, but date picker is the thing. And it looks like that. And I already delivered talks, so I live integrated that. So then ENG web components, for instance, Lion is called the framework, Lion. They are like, these components are very strong in validation, input formatting, but there is no CSS. You can just pick them. So what it means is I can pick and choose from whatever components I like, but this is not web components. I would call it like libraries, like extension, like functional libraries. I don't need.
But it remembers me, if you don't mind me taking up some of your time. If it reminds me in the past when we used to build web applications all by ourselves using jQuery, we build everything and we use jQuery just to help with browser compatibilities and have a boost in productivity. And then we moved to frameworks like React, like Angular, like Vue.js, because we felt at the time more productive with them. So by what you are saying now, maybe that it's inverting now because they are bringing too much stuff to the table, and instead of making you more productive, they have the inverse effect. Is that what you meant, or?
Yeah, and for instance, jQuery is that because we have document query selector, one function. So what it means is over time, the browser APIs became more and more capable. So, and at the same time, what I didn't mention today, imports. So what we got natively, ESM imports in JavaScript. And what you see here, this JavaScript looks almost like Java. So it is completely different to before 2015.
It is.
Before 2015, you had to use Angular 1. It would be crazy, to try to implement something without a framework. But now JavaScript looks like Java, so it's just, really for me no different. So you can write clean code. With lit HTML, you get DOM diffing, and this is just a suggestion. If lit HTML dies, there is Hyper HTML is very similar. And if this dies, you can write your own. So this is like in Java, you would, I don't know, write your own date validator. Something like this is not like, I'm creating dependency injection in browser, what Angular does, or module system. So what I'm doing, I'm just using web component, and the entire DBE element, what I showed you right now, is, if you see what happens here, it just listens to changes, and this happens here in this line of code. It listens to changes of the Redux store, and if something happens, it re-renders. It re-renders, trigger view update the application, and there's lots of logging. You see a console group open, it's just logging, because what I like in my development is a nice output. So what I see here, I see that the moderators was loaded, it did subscribe it for Redux changes, then it was updated, then the preview was updated, so I see what's going on in a hierarchical point of view, and this is why it is 50 lines of code, otherwise it will be 20. And because there are 20 lines of code, it is absolutely understandable. I can set a breakpoint. There are no transpilation, no transpiration, or whatever it's called. I can just, program with it. And this is the cool stuff. Developers don't even need NPM on their machines. There is no build required. You only have to write, JavaScript. And if build is really necessary, because we really have to address, the old Internet Explorer 11, then it happens in Jenkins pipeline, or code pipeline on AWS, or whatever. So there is like CI/CD where NPM creates, the legacy JavaScript, but you don't have to do this on the developer machines.
And one last question: do you?
Wait a second, Samuel. And we are absolutely compatible with micro frontends. So with that, micro frontends are built in, because I can load every component over the network. This is the great story, without breaking compatibility. Sorry for interrupting you. Now your question.
No. Okay. Well, the last question is why do you use plain JavaScript and not TypeScript? Because you don't need TypeScript at this stage, because TypeScript will impose you some kind of build, right? So
yeah, but with Visual Studio Code, you saw how it behaves, and I'm using actually TypeScript. Why? Because Visual Studio Code, it just understands TypeScript, and I get, I would say 90% of the refactoring capabilities of TypeScript without any external framework. So you could use TypeScript at any time, but then you will have to install the TSC compiler, which is not necessary. So I start small, and if you say, no, I really would like to have TypeScript, just use it. No problem at all. But we don't start with TypeScript. So we start minimal. And feedback from project is just great. So this is not like, what I did is I extracted this template from several projects, because I actually implemented the 20 lines over and over again, and then became lazier. And funny story, I asked myself how to share such a template with the community. So what to do, because I looked on NPM, but NPM is somehow strange, why I need NPM. And then the most obvious, thing is like putting it just to GitHub and clone it was not obvious to me, because I always thought, we have to use NPM to share JavaScript code, which is not true at all. So the idea here, you clone it and you run it. So there's 2 liners and it works. Okay, Samuel, you are the best.
So you
attendee.
see, you have questions after all.
Yeah, very good. Samuel, you are the best attendee ever. I send you a t-shirt. Very good. Now, you see here, list, add bookmark, and moderators. Hello, JNation. So it seems to work. So now the question is, what if I would like to have a text field here? So let's say input, and let's say placeholder, and the placeholder is ask questions. And the question, Samuel, to you, right? I'm hacking here code without any frameworks, and I'm feeling actually productive. I don't think I'm missing out a lot. I don't think I did some of Angular projects, more React projects, but it's not like, I would say the code is even similar to React. And what I do, I have to admit, I steal lots of React patterns, and they are working with this approach as well. So now change. This is on change event. And if this changes, I would like to listen to the changes. And so what I would like to do is to say here, this save what question, and just pass E. So I need the method, and the method is save question, and this method or method, but it's inside a class. And as you can see, it even recognizes here expected 0 arguments, but got 2. And this is the TypeScript compiler from Visual Studio Code, but I'm not using TypeScript, it's just JavaScript. And this is actually the goodness from Visual Studio Code. So I don't have to set up TypeScript. I'm just, yeah. Now I know that inside the event, there is a target. And inside the target, there is a value. So if I do this, and then say console log the value. So now, if so let's see whether it's working. So where's my here? And I go here and say any question, and leave the field. You see any question, it seems to work. Now I would like to pass the question to the control, and I will call it moderators control. So you could create a class, but it's actually not necessary. So instead, I would just create a save question function, save question function, and this function receives the question, and then puts the question here. So now I could do here console log, and of course do in a control, and then the question. Okay, and then in the moderators, what I can do or have to do is I would like to go here and say save question, and this is from my moderators control, and I got the auto completion value, and then if I do here something, I see moderators control, inner control, ADFF. So now what if I would like to send the question to the server? And for this purpose, I created a small Java backend, which I use for testing. And this thing is called mockend. And by the way, the BCE template, this is the template I cloned, and it comes with a couple of YouTube videos where I explain actually how it's working behind the scenes and how we can install that. But this is minimalistic. So if you can, if you find something which you can delete, send me a tweet. I'm happy to delete the stuff. Okay, now lit HTML is already discussed, and Redux maybe. So mockend. What mockend is, it is a backend, microprofile backend, as uses Quarkus, which basically is singleton again, and whatever I send to mockend, it remembers, and I can ask it via CRUD. It also comes with like echo, where it just echoes whatever I said. It can generate status code to test, error 400s or whatever. It supports server send events and stuff like that. So I would like to start it. So how to use it? There is a jar, download, and say java -jar. So okay, so let's do it. Start mockend, and it should start. Oh, it started too fast. And how it works? So you can just pick this and say almost -I. You can see 201 created. There's a location header, and I can just get this from the location header, and I got it back. So that's the idea. Okay, so let's send the text to the backend. So how to do that? And I would like to be asynchronous. So question. So what I can do, I can say, hey, the entire thing is async. Then I can say fetch, and I forgot the URI. This is the URI. And this is the URI, and I would like to wait until something happens, and then I need the configuration. And what I have to say here is method is post. Then I need the body, and the body is JSON stringify. And by the way, I'm writing this now. What happens in projects? I've write it once, like post, put, delete in fetch, and this is then one control and be called from everywhere. I'm building everything from scratch to see the worst possible experience you can get with the stuff. And let's say payload, and the payload is the question. I think this is right. Body, and probably I will need headers that you see this actually complete. And the header is content type. What I'm sending is application JSON. Application JSON. And if you have authentication JSON web tokens, this is the place in one place you can just put the tokens, set them back and forth. So there is not like you have to do it everywhere. Okay, so this is this, and this is wrong. This is JSON. Okay, now it looks good. Fetch, and yeah, let's see whether it's working. So if I say any questions left, and just leave it, hopefully something happens here, and you can see something happened indeed. So I got here request, and let's see curl localhost 8080 / CRUD. And as you can see, payload, any questions left, this is what arrived from the client. So now the cool story is this function is already asynchronous, so nothing blocks here, and we get no questions to you. So we have the backend communication combined with, so what we did, we introduced a route, we introduced a new component with a text field. We fetched we got the text, we send the text to the server using JSON in, I would say, 20 minutes, because Samuel interrupted the show with a lot of good questions. So Samuel, is anyone in the chat a question, who ask a question?
Actually, we have a couple of questions.
Are you sleeping or what, Samuel? Go ahead, read the question.
Because the questions came up when we were discussing, and I didn't want to interrupt you during 20 minutes just for questions.
No, go ahead. First question.
Okay, so first, we have Lucas that is asking if we can share the URL after the presentation. So maybe it's easier if you can write it down on the Zoom chat, and I will copy paste it to Slack and to YouTube.
If I'm maybe after the session I have to disconnect, then I will tweet this in worst case.
But if you paste it on the Zoom, on this Zoom, I will copy paste to the other places.
Okay, I will do it.
And then we have Nun Faria. Hello, great talk. It is possible to use separate files for HTML code instead of having it in the GS class?
It's very possible, but it's a bad idea. So I was also with him. So I'm Java developer. For me, it looked terrible. You know, the argument is always, why are you mixing the presentation and business logic? But I spent some time with React 5 years ago, and it was great. It is very productive. So there would be a way, but we never do it. So you can load the string. This is just a string. You can load it from another file. No problem at all.
But if you use other frameworks like Angular, if I remember correctly, you have separated files, right?
React not, and Angular is, I would say, only popular among Java developers in .NET. So if you go to our web shops, they don't even know Angular, or they will laugh at you that you are using something like this, really. And React is far more popular. React, Vue, JS, React, forgot the other one, Svelte. These are the modern frameworks, or modern. They are very lean. But my question is always, why I need a framework at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can ask.
Another question. By using vanilla JavaScript and not TypeScript, how do you deal with older browser support? Do you use Babel to support older browsers? I think you already answered that with continuous integration, right?
You see, ECMAScript 2015, what I'm using, is supported everywhere, even partially on Internet Explorer 11. So if you have Netscape Navigator or Mosaic, the really old browsers, you know, from 1997, then maybe, but I would say my projects, no Babel, no Webpack, nothing. This is actually the productivity boost. So this is your answer, and you can see that here 85% of users are using Internet Explorer 11.
It's not supported anymore. So
maybe someone in the Neanderthals on the cave with some.
You can you still have older browsers there that maybe are more used than Internet Explorer. The ones.
But
on
you
the
see,
right.
Internet Explorer, if it goes back to Firefox 54, so 54, so it is like what I showed you right now is old stuff, really old stuff. Nothing new what I showed you right now. This is the cool story.
And I think
Next question.
I
So
think
unfortunately, everything remains simple.
unfortunately, that's all I have for you.
Oh, really sorry. So how much? 5 minutes to go. So
Yes.
what I can do now is, you see, I can now fetch this back and say I would like to have the response here. Response. And the response can be extracted as the JSON. And what I get back, JSONs, yeah, of course, JSON actually. So let's just do the console log JSON. So, and now if I go here, I leave it, you see I got back the entire thing. So now, unidirectional data flow, what this means now, what I would do is I would create now a Redux action and just use it. And the Redux action works like this. Create action, and the name of the action, and you saw here now the auto import was plain JavaScript, and the create action, how to call it, save question are always named in exactly the same, and export const save question action equals. I have to export it because the reducer needs a reference here. So and then what you have to do is you have to say save question action and then put the JSON here. So now if I will run the application once again, and what I need now, maybe I can launch. Wait a second, never tried that. But they should work. New window. Okay, make it smaller. Localhost 3000, and then open this to write. So now, if I do this, then you see the bookmarks, and what you should also see, I got back in Moderators 16 an array back here, but there should be an action called, and it just reloaded itself. That's the problem. Wait a sec. Now I have two Redux instances running. That's the problem. I just wanted to prevent. Okay, let's. The point is, what already happened. The save action was executed here, and not executed. It was invoked. And what I can do right now is I can say store dispatch, and store has to be imported. Control space. No. Store. Yeah. Dispatch and the action. This is actually what should happen. So, and now we are done here. What it means is this is called asynchronously, but we are waiting, await, but the entire thing is asynchronous. So then we're changing the state on the server. I'm not handling the errors here. Then I go again to the server. I fetch the entire state. I could also fetch the diff or whatever you need. I get the JSON back, and then I'm sending the diff to the store. And the cool story is the store changes the state and invokes all the components. And in order to implement the store, I would need to implement the moderators reducer JS. and this is like create reducer, and I call it just moderators, export const moderators. And this create reducer needs an initial state, const initial state. And this initial state is what, if you load the application, what should happen. And let's say we have just a list, and this is an array. Let's say this is the initial state, list of moderators, nothing else. So, and this initial state has to be passed here, initial state. And then we get a builder, and the builder builds. So, and the builder builds cases. So the builder, build, not so. Builder, think of builder, add case, and the case would be in the case of save question action. I have the state and the action, and what I'm interested from the action is the payload, and now I can do something with it. And this is going to be, but I think we are out of time, which is not bad. But what only happens here is state.list, and I'm just giving the list the payload. The cool story is, because we are using Redux Toolkit, we don't have to clone the entire thing. It happens automatically behind the scenes. We are basically done. The only thing what I have to do is I have to register the moderators, and this happens in the store. And as you can see, what I need, I have one slot bookmarks, the other slot is moderators, and I will also have to import that. And this works like import, and there's a statement, and this is moderators. This is then the entity, and this is the moderators reducer, and then moderators. And with that, I think we should see now that state, great, we have moderators list and we have bookmarks. So we have one slot for one component here. And then I can say, if I change that, so then we have moderators, as you can see, list of all moderators in my Redux state. So now I'm in the state, I have the list, entire list from the server. And so having this, I can easily go to the boundary, say now moderators list, and create another component which picks the moderators list JS, and this class just picks class moderators list, and this extends from the BE element. Then I can say custom elements define. Of course, there are templates for everything. I could generate the entire thing as a template, but I show you the diverse possible experience. J moderators list, and this is the moderators list. So the cool story is now I can say here view.
Feeling the pressure, Adam?
Yes, yeah. I'm sweating already. So so this is const, and then we need here we need here the moderators, and from the moderators the list, and then from the state. So because we have the slot state and HTML is not imported because we have JavaScript, it works perfectly. And now I can say the following, list.map, and they are the moderators, and then HTML, and this is almost Redux code. And here I can say just M in P. Cool. So 30 seconds. Now, if we are lucky, I can just add here J moderators list, and this should be here. And I have import the thing here, import, and this is moderators list. So and now let's see what happens. So hello JNation and hello JNation. Does something happen or not? Hard to tell. But there are no errors at least, and something with the rendering. But as you can see, moderators, is this rendered? Moderators? No, moderators list. I think I'm J moderators list probably. Wait a sec. We have, this has to work. Moderators list. E is not defined. Okay. Moderators list. He's right. And you see all the objects. So, and the object has, let's say, text, hopefully. And do something. No text. I forgot what was inside. IDs. Everyone has an ID. Let's try with ID. You see IDs now. So what I was able, I can say, hello, one more. So this is now the unidirectional data flow. I'm going to server fully asynchronously. I'm getting a list, and the list is rendered in complete different component. And I would say, why you should use frameworks? They just slow you down, right?
Okay, so Adam, have you finished? Because
Yeah, I have to. No, I'm not finished, but I feel the pressure, so I have to finish.
So it's your fault. You asked for questions.
Yeah, very good. This is interactive. The conference should be active. Otherwise, it's a screencast. I can send you something pre-recorded,
Yeah.
you know, and you can just play it.
I agree. So we don't have any additional questions. If you have questions, please ask them on Slack, and maybe Adam can join this discussion later, or ask Adam directly on Twitter. And
yes,
Adam, thank you very much for joining us today. Hope to see you in the next year.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Long.
It was
Thank
a pleasure.
you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.